back to more of the Tony Tone Show on Muscatine's Vintage Sound 93.1.
You know that song, ladies and gentlemen, Iowa Hawkeye Football. What an incredible season to be a Hawkeye. 11-0 heading into Nebraska, hostile territory, if you will, on Friday, the last regular season game. It's a big one, and the voice of your Iowa Hawkeyes is on the phone right there. Gary Dolphin, how you doing?
Hey, Tony. Good morning. Doing good.
Welcome to the show. It's good to have you back on the air. And this Nebraska team, they have nothing to lose, right?
No, they don't. And typically you can say that about any trophy game or, border rival, whether it's Minnesota. You saw how close that thing was. Wisconsin was a 10-6 game. The Iowa State game was tied with, 4 or 5 minutes to go.
Right.
I suspect this thing is going to have some melodrama to it before it's all said and done. But, those games were several weeks back. I think Iowa has gotten better each week in its execution. And, I look for a really great effort by the Hawkeyes. It seems to be the year of, plus turnovers when Iowa wins the turnover battle or at least keeps it even. They're able to, over 4 quarters, find ways to win the football game, and I expect that of them again this week.
So, Gare, but this Nebraska team, and I don't know if it's just this rivalry that the Hawks have had for a while, but I was watching some of their highlights, and a 5-6 record isn't indicative of too many, but they have potential to be a spoiler on Friday, don't they?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, and not unlike Oklahoma State and Oklahoma and all these intersectional. Florida State, Clemson has to play South Carolina, even though South Carolina's had a really rough year. When you get down to this last game of the year, you've got all those great intersectional rivalries. Iowa, Nebraska is one of those. And one thing you can never doubt about Nebraska is they still recruit the great talent. They're still that great tradition that they roll out there, the 5 or 6 national championships and the 850 wins, which is 4th all time. And kids today, I have no idea what that means, but mom and dad, you can bet, research it, and they still recruit California, Texas, Florida. They recruit nationally, and they get great athletes. Tommy Armstrong is a quality quarterback. He's from Texas. Most of their linemen come from the state of Nebraska, or certainly the Midwest, and then they pluck in these guys from California and Georgia and Louisiana, and they've got plenty of them again this year. The breaks haven't gone their way in those close losses, whether it be overtime or otherwise. But really, it gets down to execution. I'm sure when Nebraska and Mike Riley have gone back and looked at their schedule, a play here, a play there, probably a total of a dozen plays, and maybe you win 2 or 3 more games. You get a stop in the end zone on those Hail Mary passes. Iowa understands that. Kirk Ferentz is very level-headed when it comes to explaining the opponent to his players, as is the coaching staff. So that part really doesn't, that spoiler thing really doesn't bother me, nor does the Sports Illustrated cover. I just think this team is so businesslike and so focused that all that outside noise, as C.J. Beathard likes to call it, is immaterial.
So that was going to be my next question, Gary. What has surprised you most about this Hawkeye team this year?
First off, they've got 21 seniors, and that usually that's a high number. Your average recruiting class is 25. And if usually by attrition, disgruntlement, guys leaving the program, medical red shirts, injuries, all those things, usually end up with 15 to 18 guys in the end. Iowa has 21. That tells me that there's a lot of unity among the senior class and therefore spreads to the team. And when you look at every position group, I don't care if you go to punter, kicker, special teams, linebacker, secondary, down lineman, tailback, wide receiver. There is a critical senior at each position group. Tavon Smith, Austin Blythe, Cole Fisher, Jordan Lomax, Marshall Kane, Dylan Kidd, Jordan Kanzuri. C.J. Beathard obviously is a salty, tested junior, and Drew Ott, even though he hasn't played the second half of the season because of that ACL, is another coach on the sidelines, and Nate Meyer is the leader of that front four. And so it goes on, and you have a great position. You have a great leader at every position group who is a senior. And those seniors all seem to reflect the head coach's demeanor, the poker face, no, we're not out there bragging about what we've done. No, we're looking ahead to the next minute, the next quarter, the next half, the next game. They've been able to keep that focus, and why not for one more week?
Yeah, and that's so true, isn't it? I mean, this is a very confident but not arrogant football team. And that seems to be sort of almost like an Iowan way of life, isn't it?
It is,
right?
There's a difference between arrogance and calm and confident. You can be humble and be confident, and that's a common thread I've seen in this team, both offense, defense, special teams, all season long. And I think that's a large part of why Iowa is plus 12 or plus 11 in turnovers at this stage of the season versus a year ago at this time when they were minus 4. They care about their effort. They care about their teammates and about getting the job done the right way. And as you remember, Tony, back in January when Kirk came out with that new look, Too Deep, to kind of start the shake-up storm, was way beyond just changing quarterbacks. They looked at the time of the day they have practices. They looked at how many film sessions and weightlifting sessions, and were they doing too much? I mean, they turned over every chair and table from how much protein or what are we feeding these guys to what time we have practice. So let's move them to the morning, and it's all worked out. And I'm not saying any one component has been a difference maker, but I still think it gets back to this group of seniors, and obviously the quarterback is a difference maker.
If you're just tuning in, that's Gary Dolphin, voice of the Iowa Hawkeyes. Hawkeyes versus Nebraska on Friday. You can listen to the game right here. In the news this week also, Gary, Drew Ott looking for an extra year of eligibility. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm only going by what Kirk Ferentz says. It's going to be tough to get the NCAA to grant that because of the games he's played in this year. Now, he did not redshirt his freshman year. Because they needed him so bad in the front line, in the defensive line. So hopefully, and then they do take that all into consideration. He was thrown into the mix his freshman year. He's a wonderful football player. He's an all Big Ten academic, all Big Ten performer in the classroom. I think when they add up the pluses versus the minuses, the young guy certainly should get another year simply because he has not redshirted at all. And he's a guy who goes about his business, and he's a great representation of what the student-athlete is all about. So I'm hoping that they'll grant that medical red shirt because it would be a huge boost for that defensive line coming back next year. So we'll just have to wait and see. I know Kirk wasn't very optimistic, but that was right after Drew had the surgery back in October. And so hopefully they must be getting a sense that it's worth throwing the fastball up there and see if we can hit it out of the park and get them another year. So we'll just have to wait and see. They'll know, right after the first of the year.
1 week at a time, but obviously a Big Ten championship game in Indianapolis is exciting. And it's as I said, we're still a week out, but you got to be looking forward to that, right?
Very much so. This is the first divisional title that Iowa's been able to win outright since the realignment occurred in 2011-12. They were right there a year ago with destiny in its lap. All they had to do was take care of business at home against Wisconsin and Nebraska, and it didn't happen. And I think that has served as great motivation for this year. And that's why I'm not worried at all about the effort they'll give on Friday. Now, will it be good enough to win the game? We'll have to wait and see because Nebraska's got talent, too. It's their senior day. They need a victory to go to a nice bowl. They have a chance to knock off two top 10 teams in the same month, Michigan State being the other. And I was reading last night where that hasn't happened since 1923. Well, you can bet they've got that up on the board at Memorial Stadium. So it's going to be a great atmosphere, one that I've always relished. I've been to a lot of big games in my career, and this one stands right there on the precipice of being one of the great moments because Iowa's never gone 12-0. And but beyond that, this is a very deserving team to play in the Big Ten championship, and I really like their chances. I don't care who they line up against, Ohio State, Michigan. The way those teams are built and the way Iowa's built, absolutely the Hawks will take their chances.
Last two questions. How tempted was Eddie to build a snowman in the booth last weekend?
Not not one bit excited about doing that. When you creep up on our age, you want to stay away from the cold and the snow. He's got a place in Costa Rica, so that'll tell you what he thinks of the cold weather. He likes to tell that growing up in a farm in Atlantic, Iowa, all those years, being outside at 4 a.m. in the dead of winter doing chores, he's had his fair share of cold and ice and wind and snow outside. So we will have the press box windows open though this weekend, and if that nasty breeze rolls across the Nebraska plain and hits us in the face, we'll put up with it because we've got to get the crowd noise going.
Yes, you do. So Gary, obviously the game's Friday. Do you get to have a Thanksgiving tomorrow or what?
Yeah, a very nice gesture by the football team or by the program, the operations people. When we go to Lincoln on Thanksgiving Day, we'll land 1-2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. They'll have their meetings and film sessions and walkthrough and all those wonderful things. And we'll wrap up our pregame interviews with the coaching staff and the players. And then after that, the team goes and has a team meal, Thanksgiving dinner, and then the traveling party. The administrative folks, the athletic department, and us on the trip will follow them in simply because of a lack of space. We'll follow them in and clean up the Thanksgiving leftovers. So yeah, everybody will eat in unison tomorrow evening, and that just kind of I think speaks volumes for how together the team has been all year long, Tony.
Well, what a difference a year makes. Undefeated Iowa Hawkeyes heading to Nebraska Friday. It's very exciting. Again, you can listen to Gary Dolphin and Ed Podolak on the radio. Pregame coverage at 12:30, kickoff at 2:30. Gary, safe travels. Have a great Thanksgiving, and I really appreciate the time this morning because I know how busy you are. Thank you very much.
Not a problem, Tony. Thanks to everybody in Muscatine. Go Hawks.
You got a lot of support here, that's for sure. Take care, buddy.
I know that. Take care.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye.